In this video, we'll show you how to replace the front brake hose on your Subaru Impreza. This is located in the front of the vehicle and behind the wheel. Let's get started. We can go ahead and remove the lug nuts with a 19mm. Now we're inside the vehicle. You can set your seat to a position where you can fit a pry bar. You can press down on the brake pedal. You want to be careful not to damage anything. Set the pry bar in between the seat and the pedal, and that'll hold the fluid from coming out. We can remove our banjo bolt with a 12mm. You want to have a receptacle underneath here to catch any drips of brake fluid. And make sure that both of the copper washers come off when you remove this. We can go ahead and loosen the brake line fitting, holding the hard line to the hose. This is a 10mm. You might get some drips of brake fluid out of this as well, so it's good to keep the receptacle under here. Now we have two shims holding on our brake hose. You can either use some pliers or a flathead. We'll do the same with the other one. Now we can go ahead and remove our hose. And there we have it. Installing our new hose is just the reverse order of the old one. Get the hose into position before installing our shims. You want to make sure that your banjo fitting is going to line up correctly on the caliper once the rest of the hose is installed. When installing our banjo bolt, you want to install one of the copper washers, install the banjo bolt in the hose, and install the other copper washer. Now we can install this on the caliper. With our banjo bolt started in, we can install our shims. If it's difficult to install the shim, you can tap it in. Just be careful not to damage it. Now we can go ahead and install our brake line. And we can tighten down our brake line fitting. You want to be cautious not to over-tighten this. Now we can go ahead and tighten down our banjo bolt on the caliper. Tighten till it's snug, and then tighten a little bit more to crush the crush washers. Be cautious not to over-tighten it though. Now that we've installed our brake hose, we can go ahead and remove the brake pedal depressor. We can remove the bleeder screw cap. We're going to loosen up our bleeder screw. We'll let that gravity bleed just until it starts dripping. Then we can have an assistant help us do our brake bleed. Now that we have a steady drip, we'll go ahead and tighten down the bleeder screw. Doesn't need to be too tight. We're going to go ahead and spray this off with some brake cleaner. Give it a wipe down. Reinstall your bleeder screw cap. Now we can go ahead and reinstall our wheel. If you thread the first lug nut all the way in, it'll hold the wheel for you. We'll go ahead and snug those down. Now we'll torque the wheels to 72 foot-pounds. Before opening your brake fluid reservoir, you want to clean off the cap and the surrounding area. We're just going to use a little bit of brake clean. We'll wipe off the reservoir and the cap. You don't want any debris falling into the reservoir. Now we can go ahead and open the reservoir. A small screen inside. You want to be careful when removing this not to damage it. We can go ahead and remove the old fluid. Now we'll be using a fluid extractor to pull as much brake fluid out of the reservoir as possible. If you don't have one of these, a turkey baster will also do the job. Now we can go ahead and top off our reservoir and start the brake bleed. We're going to start out bleeding the brakes on the right front, moving on to the left rear, left front, and then the right rear. We can go ahead and remove our bleeder screw cap. Can put our 8mm wrench onto the bleeder screw. And we'll be using a length of hose and a receptacle to catch the fluid. Now we'll have our assistant pump up the brakes. When they tell you they're holding, go ahead and release. Now we can have our assistant pump up the brake pedal again. Crack the bleeder screw. Watch your flow of fluid. Once you have no more bubbles, you're all set. Got to be careful when removing your hose. Now we'll use some brake cleaner and clean down the area. Reinstall your bleeder screw cap and we can move on to the next caliper. Once you've bled the first two brakes, go ahead and top off your reservoir. Now we can go ahead and remove our bleeder screw cap. Put our 8mm wrench on the bleeder screw and our hose to catch any of the brake fluid. We'll have our assistant pump up the brake pedal. And we can loosen the bleeder screw. Once your assistant lets you know that they've hit the floor, Go ahead and tighten down the bleeder screw. We'll have them pump the pedal again. Once your assistant lets you know that they're holding, go ahead and loosen the bleeder screw. Watch your flow of fluid. Once you have no bubbles coming through the line, you're all set. We can reinstall our bleeder screw cap. Spray the area down with some brake cleaner. We can give the area a wipe down. Now that we've bled the brakes, we're going to come back and top off the reservoir. You want to fill it up to the max line. That looks good. We'll reinstall our screen. And install our cap.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.